following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Flat Earth Files. I'm your host, as always, George, and I hope you guys had a really nice weekend. I hope you're able to spend some time with friends and family and just to, enjoy life a little bit. Here in the Mid-Atlantic region, it was absolutely freezing all weekend, down into single digits, so we had to spend a lot of time rotating our chickens' water out because it would freeze every couple of hours, keeping them warm. We have heaters in all their coops, but when the sun's up, they don't really spend any time inside the coop, sans, laying their eggs. So, but they're troopers. They're doing well. We've given them a lot of warm, like oatmeal. They love oatmeal, but they're doing well, and they're still churning out some eggs for us. God bless them. So again, I hope everyone had a really nice weekend, and it's great to have everyone back. We have an email to read to the masses, and we're going to read a couple excerpts. One in reference to the email. We have a clip from Scientism's Lord and Savior, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love it when these guys contradict themselves. I can't get enough of it. We have a book recommendation that we're going to read the excerpt from, and then we're going to close. Where's my link here? That the North Star proves that the Earth does not move. Lots of really good information coming to you today. So let's go ahead and kick it off, guys. And by the way, I did get a little ahead of myself. We do have a listener that wants to come on the program. Hopefully, we can get it scheduled, for the next in the next week, couple of weeks. Very knowledgeable in flat Earth, and also, I don't know if he's an ex-Mason or still into Freemasonry, but it should be a very interesting conversation. And I've reached back out to him, and we'll be working on scheduling that interview here in the coming days and weeks. Now, let's kick off the program with an email. This is from our friend Jabroni from the Rocky Mountains. It says, "Merry Christmas, George. I hope this email finds you well. I am very skeptical as to much of what I hear, not only on the flat earth theory, but other theory conspiracies as well. I have very little doubt that our so-called government shares much in the way of truth with us citizens."
Looking to make your holiday gifts more extraordinary? There's one place you need to go: PaperSource. PaperSource's gift wrap collection includes hand-illustrated designs, stone paper, sustainable handmade fine papers, and even pine-scented wrap. Don't want to do any wrapping? PaperSource has easy solutions with their pre-wrap gift boxes and bags. Or you can leave it to the professionals with their in-store wrapping service. Give yourself time back and wrap up your holidays with something extraordinary. Visit papersource.com or stop by a PaperSource near you today.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high-fiver? I kind of like the high-five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
The following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Flat Earth Files. I'm your host, as always, George, and I hope you guys had a really nice weekend. I hope you're able to spend some time with friends and family and just to, enjoy life a little bit. Here in the Mid-Atlantic region, it was absolutely freezing all weekend, down into single digits, so we had to spend a lot of time rotating our chickens' water out because it would freeze every couple of hours, keeping them warm. We have heaters in all their coops, but when the sun's up, they don't really spend any time inside the coop, sans, laying their eggs. So, but they're troopers. They're doing well. We've given them a lot of warm, like oatmeal. They love oatmeal. But they're doing well, and they're still churning out some eggs for us. God bless them. So, again, I hope everyone had a really nice weekend, and it's great to have everyone back. We have an email to read to the masses, and we're going to read a couple excerpts. One in reference to the email. We have a clip from Scientism's Lord and Savior, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love it when these guys contradict themselves. I can't get enough of it. We have a book recommendation that we're going to read the excerpt from, and then we're going to close. Where's my link here? That the North Star proves that the Earth does not move. Lots of really good information coming to you today. So let's go ahead and kick it off, guys. And by the way, I did get a little ahead of myself. We do have a listener that wants to come on the program. Hopefully we can get it scheduled, for the next in the next couple of weeks. Very knowledgeable in flat Earth, and also I don't know if he's an ex-Mason or still into Freemasonry, but it should be a very interesting conversation, and I've reached back out to him, and we'll be working on scheduling that interview here in the coming days and weeks. Now, let's kick off the program with an email. This is from our friend Jabroni from the Rocky Mountains. It says, Merry Christmas, George. I hope this email finds you well. I am very skeptical as to much of what I hear, not only on the flat earth theory, but other theory conspiracies as well. I have very little doubt that our so-called government shares much in the way of truth with us citizens. The question that I have for you, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is what about the pilots? How are they not aware they're flying over a flat plane versus a round globe? Thank you for taking the time to read this email, and hopefully you'll respond to it in one of your later podcasts, as I will be listening. And thank you for the time you invest in your podcast. I'm very skeptical of all I hear, but your theories sound very interesting to me, and I will continue to listen as long as you are still available to be heard. Thank you very much, Jabroni. Appreciate the email. And here we go. I try to get responses to these emails within the next podcast. I have a couple answers for you. The first one, I ask that everyone, and listen, I like to see people support people who are actually, trying to expose these conspiracies. I really highly recommend a book by Eddie Alencar, and it's 16 Emergency Landings Proving Flat Earth. And the other thing that I will say to you, Jabroni, is when you look at the commercial air flight paths on a globe Earth, like I have been back and forth to Germany 24 times at least. And when you know how they have the real-time radar on the quote-unquote globe, and you can watch it on these transcontinental flights, it doesn't make any sense, because when you look at the radar while we're flying in live time, it shows you going up around Nova Scotia and up around Greenland instead of going straight across. However, if you were to do the same flight path on a flat Earth, it would make complete sense. For instance, you look at, just say, a flight from Abu Dhabi to Fort Worth. If you look at the graphic, and I'll put this in the show description, you can see how it's tracked on a globe map versus the flight path on a flat Earth map. And it would, these long flight paths on the ball Earth really takes these strange northern loops, just like I said on our flights from, we would generally fly, like if I was at Fort Carson, Colorado, we would fly to Bangor, Maine, and then straight across to Germany. And the flight path made no sense, right? These flight paths make these unnecessary high northern latitudes and loops. Why don't they go in a straight line? And the fact of the matter is, of course, they're going in a straight line. On a flat Earth map, the flight path going over land in the northern altitudes, or latitudes, I should say, make perfect sense because it's a straight line from point A to point B. So again, this will be in the show description. Take the time to click on these links and look through them, especially the flights like Johannesburg to Perth, going all the way north to Dubai, and then all the way back down to Perth. Makes no sense. Johannesburg to Dubai to Perth on a globe map makes no sense. However, on a flat Earth map, it makes perfect sense. And you'll see that when you click on the links. And then some people say, well, pilots can see the curve and they're only at 35, 40,000 feet. Well, this is Neil deGrasse Tyson, March 2014, explaining that you can't even see the curvature of the Earth at 128,000 feet. Again, this is from the man himself.
And that dude who jumped out of a perfectly good balloon, what's his name? Felix Baumgartner. He would have been about 2 millimeters above the surface of this globe. That's his edge of space jump. Now, I don't. It's fine. He wants to. I don't have a problem if he does it, but the honesty of it would greatly diminish what I think people thought he was actually doing. And not only that, they made sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide-angle lens, which curves horizontal lines. Right. So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he said, "Wow, he's in space. Look at that." No, he's not. At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. You just don't. That stuff is flat.
Did you hear that? Can you say that one more time, Neil?
That stuff is flat.
I'm sorry. I must have absolutely misheard you.
Just don't. That stuff is flat.
There you go. They come out and tell you, folks, it is flat. So, my friend, Jabroni, thanks for taking the time to email us from the Great Rocky Mountains, where my family spent 7 years. I was deployed half the time, so I didn't get to enjoy the great state of Colorado as much as I would have liked to. But if you can't see the curve, a la Felix Baumgartner's 128,100 feet, then there's no way, certainly, that you can see it at 35 or 40,000 feet. Now, getting back to the book, 16 Emergency Landings That Prove Flat Earth by Eddie Alencar, which I really recommend. It was written in 2019. It makes a great, coffee table book for your friends and families to come in. Our attention grabber is the Flat Earth map. We have that in our living room off to the side. Again, there's no faster way to alienate your friends and family than to say, hey, the Earth's flat. But at some point, you got to have convictions in your beliefs. Now, I do want to take a minute. And again, I ask that you support him, but if you can't, all I will say is you can find this book in PDF format on the internet. I don't want to put it in the show description because I'd rather folks buy the book. If you can, it's simple enough to find it. But I wanted to read the foreword called An Unpredictable Standpoint by Albino Gallupini. Let me try that again. Albino Gallupini, I think his name is. He wrote the foreword for this book, and he goes on to say that in recent decades, thanks mainly to the work of radio, TV, and independent newspapers, many conspiracy theories have made some advances. I would say leaps and bounds. Here we are 60 years later, and they finally admit what we knew, that the CIA killed John F. Kennedy, right? And that span between conspiracy theory and truth is just getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It used to be 6 months. Now it seems like 30 days, right? For 20 years now, internet technology, search engines, and information have all expanded dramatically, and they do not fit into the average so-called mainstream anymore. No wonder if, whether new points of views were brought up by independent researchers or new sensational discoveries were made by them. But one of the most important topics in this discussion is the heliocentric model. The heliocentric model teaches that the Earth is a planet revolving around the sun, included in a galaxy called the Milky Way, which is a candy bar, which is just one of a myriad of galaxies that form an ever-expanding universe. However, after all, who among us has been to Mars and to the moon to see their true colors? Who can verify if the photographs taken by the Hubble Space Telescope are actually authentic? Nevertheless, private entities have launched high-altitude balloons equipped with cameras, which have captured images showing no curvature on the Earth's surface. Wow, the supposed curvature of our planet shouldn't only depend on observing ships going away on the horizon, should they? For quite some time now, allegations have been raised about the veracity of the moon landings and the exploration of the solar system. Not to mention the impossibility of detecting the rotation of the Earth. None of us, in fact, has ever had the impression of walking on the surface of a sphere that rotates on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. You know, this web of contradictions characterize the heliocentric model. We are aware of its inconsistencies, marveling ourselves. And we ask ourselves the question, quote, how come it took us so long to raise these questions? This heliocentric nonsense has been pushed on us for over 500 years. So why just now, in the last really 10 years, this really flat earth movement has taken off? What took so long? Was the propaganda, was the indoctrination that strong? Or was it just, we talk about the good side and the bad side of the internet. Has the internet been able to allow us to create a web internationally to share our thoughts and have like-minded people come together? But one of the biggest problems concerning the Earth's spherical shape is in aviation. In fact, because of the curvature and the cruising speed of a commercial airliner, pilots should constantly direct the nose of the plane down in order to maintain a constant altitude. But there is no mention of this in flight manuals. Neither does the gyro on board take into account the curvature of the Earth. Another intriguing chapter is the main theme of this book: flight paths, retracing the way of airplanes, verified through specialized internet sites. One realizes that the path makes little sense on a globe, which appears to be the mapping model that best adheres to the real world, but makes perfect sense on a polar projection azimuthally equidistant. Now, for example, the flight from LA to Shanghai in China has been shown that it flies over Alaska and the Arctic Circle while on a globe model. Well, the shortest route runs through the Pacific Oceans. Now, detractors argue that the airlines will fly over the continental masses in case you need to make an emergency landing, therefore avoiding the open sea. However, this version loses credibility by noting that, flying over the continental masses, flight paths veer north again. Only a quarter of a century after the first powered flight by the Wright brothers was made, thanks to technological advances of the aircraft, the first flight across the Atlantic was accomplished. And it was by Charles Lindbergh, a 25-year-old pilot from the U.S. Air Force, to make a foolhardy venture in 1927. Now, from a Zedeca perspective, one cannot help but notice that Lindbergh's path is almost a straight path on a flat Earth map, if you will. Now, conversely, the route traveled is bent and elongated if traced on a globe. How to explain, if not assuming that the shape of the Earth is different from that spherical? But that's not all of the mysteries that surround the aviation field. Many have raised doubts of the operation of jet engines and what amount of fuel is supplied to an aircraft before it takes off. Easy to reach the conclusion that even the aeronautical science, indeed the history up to now, is stuffed with nothing but fat lies. For this reason, I believe that this book by Eddie Alencar on the specific topic of the flight paths is a key piece of the puzzle represented by the shape of the Earth. And then it's just, I wish you a happy reading by Albino Gallipini. Now, we'll go ahead and let's take the forward by Eddie Alencar, too. He says, I have had many people sending me questions and asking my opinion about flight paths and emergency landings and how these flight paths prove that the shape of the Earth is not a globe. I have since decided to write this book where I represent 16 emergency landings proving flat Earth. And he shows by comparing the flight paths side by side on the globe model and on a flat Earth that these paths, that the paths of these flights on the flat Earth make more sense over the ball Earth model. He goes on to say, I start this book by telling a little bit about me and my struggle when I first came across the flat Earth information. The author had visited NASA in Huntsville, Alabama twice in his lifetime, and having been a big science believer and science fiction reader, it was extremely hard at first to look through the evidence and find the hidden truth in a pile of lies. Since the beginning of my investigation and research, I have defended the position that flight paths and emergency landings are among the strongest evidences, if not the strongest evidence, that the Earth is not a globe. I also came to the conclusion that those who have been withholding this information have done it so for a long time, and they have been using all sorts of mechanisms. And we're talking about the education system, technology, and the media, just to keep this truth from being widely known by the population of the world. I hope this book may help you, the reader, to see through the lies and deceit. If you open your eyes and find this truth, please don't keep it to you. Share it with the world. The flat Earth map I will be using in this book is the one which has been come to known as Gleason's map, the new standard map of the world. This was patented by Alex Gleason on November 15th, 1892. So if you want to check out, you can pull that up on the internet in a nanosecond, okay? And again, there isn't a map that is 100% accurate. And the Gleason's map may or may not have its flaws, but for comparing flight paths, it is the perfect tool. So there you go. And again, I really implore you to take the time to get this book. It's got great depictions of the maps, the introductory to flat Earth, on and on and on. He talks about his, in 2015, he was really big into politics and the primaries, Ted Cruz. And he goes on to say how on Fox News that there was the 10 candidates lined up for a face-off. And it's very interesting when you read through his awakening to flat Earth. It's very, very interesting. He starts talking about time zones and things of that nature. So, and I do believe that Jesse Ventura had a bit of an awakening in his life as well. So this is a truly great read. It's not just the 16 emergency landings. He does discuss his awakening and things of that nature. Again, I can't recommend it any more highly. 16 emergency landings proving flat Earth. The author is Eddie Alencar. And again, the reasons that they perpetuate this massive lie for such a length of time is to literally keep our individual powers in check, right? And basically try to take God out of the equation is why they do this. And again, Elena Freeland said, maintain a lie or secret for one generation, and the next generation becomes easy pickings, particularly if the lie is echoed in school textbooks, cartoons, the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, in movies. I told you almost every movie has a globe in it. And the two things that's ingrained to you as an infant is that Santa Claus, is real. There's a guy in a red suit who, goes around the world in 24 hours and gives everyone gifts, and that we're on a globe. They have all the Earth and the solar system above everyone's crib. And it turns out that, one of them was a lie, but we're definitely on a ball hurtling through space at, 66,600 miles per hour. And listen, for the last, 500 years, very little people has challenged the heliocentric theory because it's what they call settled science. And what have you heard for the last 2.5 years? You can't challenge science. You can't challenge the jab, right? It's settled. You can't question the science. And when you hear that, your radar better go up really quick, because if you think the government is here to protect you, I got a bridge to sell you in Oklahoma, folks. And again, on our most basic cultural identities of a global Earth traveling around a central star, traveling around a galaxy amongst billions and billions of other galaxies, too far away to even fathom, right? With their own planets and solar systems in the universe, that is accepted common knowledge to everyone. But if one could simply observe for themselves, take away everything that's been pounded into your mind from whether it be a public school or private school, they all teach heliocentrism, right? They all do. If you just take a moment without any prejudice or belief, without any worrying about being called a lunatic, you would see a sun and a moon traveling across the sky each day along a prescribed path from east to west, okay? We see the sun and the moon being the same size, basically, right? We feel no motion of the Earth traveling at 1,000 miles each way, and the sun traveling at 1,000 miles a second and hurtling through the Milky Way galaxy. The only, people who tell us or show us otherwise is NASA and Google Earth. Do you trust NASA? Never a straight answer. Do you trust Google Earth, which, the Alphabet Corporation is run by the CIA? YouTube? Why do you think on my other channel, The Fact Hunter, I don't do videos on YouTube anymore because anything I put out exposing the truth gets a strike. Same with Facebook and Twitter, censorship. But now, Elon's here and everything's going to be better. He's just another actor on the world stage. But people are waking up. People are certainly waking up. And we should question everything as truthers. That is our job. And of course, in this next article I'm going to read, this is a fact, that the Bible is filled with references of flat earth and the firmament above in a closed system. And listen, once a generation, like she said, once a generation is indoctrinated to a way of thinking, it is very easy to follow. It's very easy for following generations to admit as fact what was once considered nonsensical. And if you just erase everything you've ever been taught and you look at globe theory versus flat earth theory, heliocentrism is just whacked. That's science fiction. It's scientism. And again, if long-term powers that wanted to control world knowledge, to make every man, woman, and child feel insignificant, that they're an accident, and not to hold the thought of a kingdom of God within them, you would tell them that he or she is only a very, very small part of a much bigger whole that he cannot possibly comprehend or understand. This is why it's so important that preachers, pastors, priests, and us, everybody listening to my voice, if you really want to make a change in this world, you have to get out of your comfort zone and stand for what you believe in. Put your money where your mouth is. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be sitting here doing this, I would be like, you're out of your mind. You need to go take a drug test. But, I have children and grandchildren too, and I realize the scope of this lie. And it's going to take a lot more than just George to stand on the mountaintop and have his voice heard in order to make change. It's going to take every single one of us. There's one more article I want to share with you before we close out. Not a long episode today. Just had some time this afternoon. I wanted to certainly reply to Jabroni's email. I hope the information we shared today helped you as far as the pilots. And again, I'll have the one link in the show description. But Edward Hendry wrote an article back in March of this year. And this is an excerpt from The Sphere of Influence by Edward Hendry. In Romans 10:9 through 11:10 talks about how God explains how he uses his living word to give spiritual life to his elect. God's creation revealed in his world is every bit a part of his gospel. Now, the biblical account of creation is critical because it's through God's creation that he reveals his glory and handiwork. Remember Psalms 19:1. It was on Warner von Braun's headstone. You can Google it and see it for yourself. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Now, it just says Psalms 19:1 on his headstone, but that is what Psalms 19:1 says. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. So, and now it can be, some people say, well, it was him taking a shot at God because he proved that there was no firmament. But most people, including myself, believe that that was his hidden message as he was, most people, they get very honest in their closing moments on this earth. And he obviously told somebody that's what he wanted on his headstone. Genesis 1:8, God called the firmament heaven. On and on and on. Genesis 1:14 also, the stars were placed in the firmament by God for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. It's the sky clock above us. That fixed path of travel where the stars circle the North Star can be seen everywhere in the northern latitudes. And that proves by itself that the Earth cannot be a rotating globe. That's because if the Earth were a rotating globe, then the only place where the stars could be seen to travel in a circular path around the North Star would be at the North Pole. Everywhere else on a supposed spinning globe below the North Pole would require that the stars travel in a westerly direction because the Earth is supposed to be spinning in an easterly direction. And since under the heliocentric model, the Earth is supposed to be spinning in an easterly direction, a viewer who is looking at the North Star would necessarily see all of the other stars traveling in a westerly direction across the sky. So, there is no possible way that the stars could be seen by an observer on Earth traveling in a circular path around the North Star, because that would require the stars to both travel in an easterly direction and a westerly direction as they circle Polaris, the North Star. Now, when you look at time-lapse photographs of the stars circling the North Star, you can see stars traveling in a circular path around the North Star, with some stars moving in a westerly direction, while at the same time, other stars are traveling in an easterly direction. Such an occurrence is an impossibility under the heliocentric model. It just doesn't work on the globe Earth. And a picture is worth 1,000,000 words. A time-lapse picture is worth 1,000,000 words. Again, if the Earth were spinning, a person looking at the North Star from 45.7 degrees north latitude would see all of the stars traveling in an arc across the sky in a westerly direction. Now, if the Earth were a spinning globe, the stars could not travel in opposite directions as we see is happening in time-lapse photographs. Okay? It's impossible. And I will put this article in the show description as well, because there are some time-lapse photographs in this article that really will raise your eyebrows, okay? So again, if the Earth were a sphere spinning eastward, the heliocentric model would require a time-lapse picture of the North Star to be in a fixed position in the sky in perfect synchronization with the spin of the Earth. Okay? And that is because the sky is in perfect synchronization with the spin of the Earth, because the star is fixed above the North Pole, which is supposed to be at the axis of the Earth's spin, correct? So the heliocentric model requires that all latitudes south of the North Pole, right, the North Star would remain fixed in position over every location on the allegedly spinning Earth. So that means that the North Star would appear to the camera not to be moving. And that is, in fact, what we see in time-lapse pictures. So the fly in the ointment for the heliocentric model is, if the Earth were in fact spinning, the other stars in a time-lapse picture taken south of the North Pole would create star trail arcs that would appear to be moving across the sky, only in a direction opposite the spin of the Earth. But that's not what we see, and you'll see when you go into the show description, look at these pictures. In actual time-lapse pictures of the North Star, the other stars leave circular trails around the stationary North Star. Okay, so that means that some of the stars are traveling in the same direction as the supposed spin of the Earth. That is literally impossible under heliocentrism. Because if the Earth were indeed spinning, there would be no way for any stars to leave star trails going in the same direction as the spin of the Earth. And again, you will see in the diagrams in this article that it just doesn't make sense, and it exposes heliocentrism. And these experiments go back 150 years. Every scientific experiment ever conducted has confirmed the time-lapse pictures that the Earth is stationary and the stars move over the Earth, just like the Bible says. George Airy, in 1871, 150 years ago, conducted the most notable experiment that proved that the stars move over a stationary Earth. Airy's experiment is popularly known in the scientific community as Airy's failure, because his experiment proved that the Earth does not move. Right? That's where they say he failed. Well, you proved the Earth doesn't move, so you got to be wrong. Indeed, that was George Airy exposing heliocentrism, because that was the opposite of the expected outcome of the Vatican and the controllers, right? But George Airy's experiment determined with scientific certainty that indeed it was either carrying the stars that was moving over the Earth, and that the Earth was stationary. Dr. Neville Thomas Jones explains that George Airy proved that the world was stationary and the stars are moving. And would you know, 15 years later, there was an experiment. This was 1887. This precise and what is known as the irrefutable experiment was conducted by physicist Albert Michelson and chemist E.W. Worley. The Michelson-Morley experiment, used a interferometer which measures light rays, and that experiment established that the Earth was indeed stationary. And this experiment from 1887, just before the Rockefellers started hijacking the medical community, the education, and everything else, that experiment really shook the community, the science community, I should say, that was just indoctrinated with the heliocentrism theory, that it was actually forced to change the law of physics to explain it away. So what happened? Well, they created new laws of physics that were nurtured within the umbrella of the theory of relativity. So they brought along the rise of Albert Einstein and his theory of relativity.